It seems a bit low.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for waiting. We were just having a couple of tech issues there. I am so over the moon excited to have the incredible, amazing Dr. Deborah Drake. Deborah, thank you so much for coming on the live. You have no idea how excited I've been about this.
Oh, me too. It's wonderful working with you. I just love it every time we talk.
Yeah, I'm just so buzzed up. I mean, I think you're the doctors we just want everywhere. No disrespect to doctors, but you've got such a holistic overview from the musician, from the Chinese, from the Ayurvedic, from the Western. You have all of that going on. So that's why I first saw you on YouTube. I'm not even sure if you know this. I think you were talking at one of the quantum biofeedback, and I was like, and you told the story about your friend's little boy that ran on the stage.
Yeah.
Can you just give them a quick overview before we kind of
Sure.
launch?
It's a really good story about how I went from a traditional allopathic doctor, and in one afternoon, my eyeballs got yanked open with a live demonstration of biofeedback. And after that, I literally went and bought 4 biofeedback units and began teaching it for 20 years since that day. So what happened was I was very ill myself with many heavy metal fillings in my mouth that were removed all in one afternoon and put back in again after I got my new dental plan, graduating from medical school. And the medical dentist at Sick Kids Hospital took all my teeth out and back in one day. So I got massive mercury poisoning myself, which led to yeast infections and multiple sclerosis and lymphoma. And it took me literally probably about 20 years to clean my body out after that. So I was always looking for reasons why I was chronically fatigued, even though I was a very athletic athlete. And I had all kinds of reasons with no bad habits, except for being up all night as an emergency doctor. But I was wondering, why am I feeling so crappy? And when I went to this convention on functional medicine in Vancouver called the Jeffrey Bland Functional Medicine, he was really heavily into what enzymes make you act that way. If you have an emotional disorder, it's got to have some chemistry behind it. What are the fundamental building blocks? And I was a major studier of anatomy and chemistry and physiology, so he was right up my alley. So while he's on stage teaching us how broccoli converts cortisone into progesterone, my dearest friend in the world, Caledonia, and her son Sky were staying with me in my hotel, and the maid wanted to steal my Sony Walkman. So she threw a towel on it on the bed, then gave the boy chocolate, knowing that we told her he was highly allergic to everything, should not be fed anything. So she went against our wishes, fed him chocolate, and he had some kind of a wild episode of manic hyperactivity. And he went running down the halls of the hotel. I couldn't catch him in my red high heels running as fast as I could. And he runs onto the convention floor. And he's running in and out of all the booths and causing a stir and a ruckus like a whirling dervish. And some lady grabs his shirt collar as he's running by. And she goes, "Hey, Sonny, come here." Stops him and says, "Why don't you sit here in my chair and let me settle you down?" And I come running up, huffing and puffing. And she goes, "Would you like me to, tune this kid up? He's acting a little wild." And I said, "Well, what do you mean tune him up?" And she goes, "Well, I have this biofeedback 50 channel mixer, and we could just put this head strap on him and see what's bugging him to make him act this way chemistry wise. And then we can just deliver the reciprocal tuning frequencies to settle him down." And I said, "You got to be kidding me. I'm a musician. I'm a multi-channel mixer operator in my music studio. I didn't know that it could attach to the human brain." So she says, yes, the Professor Nelson in the US and the Russian space program during the late 80s, they mapped the frequency of every tissue in the body in 3 vectors called voltage squared times amp squared times resistance squared. So every liver had a different frequency signal fingerprint than an inflamed liver, which was sharp on the music scale. And if the liver had a tumor, it was flat on the music scale. Wow. So just to give you an example, say the frequency of light is 787 hertz. And if you were 763 hertz, you didn't carry as much light in your body. And so you would have bugs grow in you that love low light, such as worms, which like to live underground in the soil where there's no light. And they have systems adapted to this. So to make a long story short, she does a reading on this kid in 3 minutes and spits out 10,000 item list of his entire probability scale of what's bugging him. Anything over 100 score was really bugging him, and it said mercury poisoning at 500% or something. So I look in his mouth, and he's got not a single mercury filling, but his mom, my dear friend, comes running up eventually and finds us on the convention floor going, "What are you guys doing?" And I said, "Well, we found out that your son has mercury poisoning. Do you have a lot of mercury?" And she goes, "Yeah, my dentist was arrested for putting in fake fillings, and I have 35 fillings in my mouth when I delivered this kid." And I said, "Well, it looks like he's picked up all that mercury on his brain, making him hyperactive. Would you allow us to sit here for half an hour and just chill him out?" So she's my favorite musician friend, and we're fascinated. So we say, "Sure, go ahead." Well, after a half an hour, we decided to stay in, I think, a second half hour. If I remember, it was about an hour long. He gets calmer and calmer and calmer and calmer and calmer and calmer before our eyes. By the end of dinner, he's a totally well-behaved boy. And by the next morning, his ADHD disappeared, and he was acting like a normal child, from what had been quite a hellion to Mr. Suave, sophisticated, charming, polite, with good table manners, and sitting still for the first time we've ever seen him. My girlfriend and I are looking at each other going, "I don't know what just happened, but something altered this boy's orchestra pit. And he's now playing a different tune today."
Yeah.
From that day on, he went on to have, from a troubled school to the top of the class, A+, valedictorian, head of the football team, all-star, and had a fantastic recovery for the rest of his life, because we really intervened early in his childhood before he could get really messed up with
Poison.
labeled as an ADHD kid, thrown on Ritalin or whatever else was going to be going on. And it is in that moment that I saw that this child had worms and other parasites that were growing on the metals. And when the metals were removed, the bioterrain changed its pH and its oxygen content of his body. So those parasites didn't have a room to live in anymore. The hotel of their bioelectric envelope had been collapsed. So I started going back and looking at all my patients in medicine and looking who's got worms, who's got yeast, who's got candida, who's got metals. And I realized the medical profession had almost no tests to pick it up. So I did a study of 5,000 tests, like 10 questionnaires of 500 questions each, then 500 blood tests and skin analysis and hair analysis and tongue analysis. And almost all the tests were normal in the sickest people in my whole practice.
It wasn't picking up the test.
The tests were not picking it up. The only test that came abnormal was their monocyte, which is the Pac-Man that eat up bugs like a first responder cop on the street. Whenever that monocyte left a 50% and went to 60%, 70, 80, 90, 100%, they were getting into leukemia and lymphoma as a prelude to heavy metals and bugs, but I couldn't find the bugs. They were such a subtle DNA level, or the people were so immunosuppressed, they couldn't even express the antibodies to some of these problems. So one afternoon, my girlfriend is a top expert in biochemistry, and she has a laboratory, and she was trying to find out how to solve her son's lymphoma, stage 4, ready to kill him problem. And I told her what I had learned, and we looked at a scan on him, and it showed that he was full of candida, paracillosis of the bone marrow. So we started looking into this, and she started giving me 200 articles a week to read on biochemistry and the chemistry of the immune system. And it turned out that monocyte count, that was the only one that was abnormal, was the massive, like, ding dong, ding dong. This is the first warning sign that your immune system is not able to respond. So I took all of my patients. I think at first I sent her 50 and eventually another 50 and another 50, etc. And I picked all the people in my whole practice that had a low or a high monocyte count. And when I took those 50 people into a double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled study of mine, I took a picture of their tongues, because the tongue, when cracked, indicates that the gut is also cracked with leaky gut. So when I actually took pictures of these 500 tongue pictures, by the way, the people at Japan Camera thought I was totally kinky. What the hell are you doing with all the ugly tongues? When I came to pick up the film, the guy gave me quite the dirty look. But I put those film onto a slideshow, and I put it up on my wall before I gave the presentation. And my 5-year-old nephew was sitting beside me, and I was flashing through the tongue slides, and yet the 5-year-old boy started going, sick, sick, not sick, sick, not sick, not sick, sick. And so he was pulling out which were the control group and which were the sick people by the sickness of the look of their swollen, exhausted, cracked, coated tongue.
Yes.
So I asked him, what are you looking at? And he goes, that crack in the tongue. So then I went back and I resorted all my slides by who's cracked and who's uncracked. And I went back to my friend's lab and I said, can you run another 50 autoimmune markers on all these people with a cracked tongue? Because I can't find out what's wrong with them, but they must have some crack in their immune system because they're the ones that have a crack and a low monocyte. So she studied all of these people for me. God bless her soul, Jean Feather. And the next morning, she's screaming at me on the phone, you've got to get over to the lab. How did you pick everybody with a positive result? Everybody that you sent me had antibodies to their adrenal or their ovaries or their thyroid or their heart or their brain or MS. She said, whatever you sent me, you must have tapped into something because they all have severe autoimmune markers. And by the way, 42% of them had H. pylori, triggering gluten antibodies against the rest of their body. And the other 25% had worms or amoebas. So I started thinking, well, maybe us doctors are missing the boat on picking up these parasites through our labs. And so I started sending all these people's tongues over to the lab. I sent them 500 blood tests checking for salmonella and H. pylori. Yeah. And they called me disgusted the next morning saying, you're taking up our lab technician for the whole country of Canada. How dare you use so many tests in one night? What are you looking for? And I said, I think I have a food poisoning outbreak. And they said, well, I guess we'll have to do it for the public health. So they called me back the next day and they were absolutely apologetic and said, you got about 85% of them positive. Wow. So that must mean that this test is useful in specificity and sensitivity. So we're canceling this test so nobody else in Canada can ever check for salmonella again. What? So here we have a problem of lack of resources, lack of testing, and lack of money to pay for those tests, and so many people having it that the medical profession has just said, I don't think we can deal with that. Let's just turn a blind eye and work on the things that we have positive blood tests for. All those subtle things below the level of detection are not sufficient enough to cause a true diagnosis of infection, like a bladder infection, right? You know, you have to have 1 × 10⁵ bacteria to call it a bladder infection. But if it's 1 × 10⁴, they say it's not a urinary tract infection, but you can still be suffering, right? It's an arbitrary line in the sand of, so I started getting very frustrated that I couldn't get my people well until I really knew what was bugging them. So I got the biofeedback equipment into my office and I started scanning. And every one of the people with MS, they were full of candida and H. pylori. Everybody who had psychosis was full of worms. Everybody who was fighting with their husband, the husband had a prostatic fluke, causing the woman to have uterine fluke, and the two were on marriage counseling with me, ready to kill each other. But when I defluked them, they were a charming, lovely, loving couple again. So yes. I started thinking maybe we're on the wrong boat here. You've been looking into this too, Lilia. Have you been noticing what I've been seeing?
Absolutely, 100%. But I think that, because my real passion is letting go and emotional stuff and stories and all that stuff. But what we're really understanding now is that these little critters transfer their emotions through the body.
Absolutely. Because they're using the same neurotransmitters as we are. Mm-hmm. So think about this. Pretend, how could I make an example of this? Okay, here's a worm. To move, it has to undulate, okay? Well, the neurotransmitter that makes the bowel undulate is acetylcholine and dopamine. If you have a tapeworm that's stealing all your acetylcholine and dopamine, you maybe get constipated. Or if you have worms which love opium and dopamine and zinc, and the worms steal all your zinc, you can't run your adrenals and your prostate and your sex drive and your orgasm, so you present with erectile dysfunction. Or if it's severe, at the full moon, those worms start making 6 beers a night or tequila, phenol alcohols as their byproduct, and your liver gets fatty, but you're not a drinker, so you don't know why you're getting fatty liver and high cholesterol, high triglycerides, and diabetes. So the doctor gives you what? An insulin based on pork tapeworm insulin, and he feeds the worm in your pancreas with all the tapeworm pork insulin you could imagine. So the doctor who's got diabetic patients didn't think you had tapeworm diabetes.
Mhm.
So they gave you the remedy that made the worm even grow bigger. And now they've got a customer for life for $100 of insulin a month as a pharmaceutical cost by the millions and millions of people now.
I know, absolutely.
So
It drives me crazy because again, we're going back. We're maybe treating symptoms as you know as valid and relevant in some situations, but we really want to get back and find out why the immune system's not working the way it's innately, intelligently designed to do. And I think, you know,
exactly.
when I was traveling in South America and in the Caribbean, parasite cleansing is a thing that everybody does. I
Exactly.
don't know if you correct me if I'm wrong here, but it seems to me that a lot of the our ability to travel to other countries that we would never normally have gone to, and also having sex with people, you know, more willy nilly, pardon the pun.
Right. Travel
That,
sex is a big industry.
yeah, exactly. So the body is now having a lot of infestation that it just never ever had the chance to have, even 50,
Exactly.
60, 70 years ago. So,
Totally true.
and then add all the other things, the food chain being destroyed, you know, the Wi-Fi, the lack of connection to nature and being outside. We now have a maelstrom for absolute disastrous health.
I
Yeah,
couldn't agree more that the word maelstrom is probably the most accurate I could imagine. And the
you must.
problem is that there's another a conflicting thing going here simultaneously, which is that parasites have an enzyme to convert sugar into alcohol, but humans don't.
Ah,
So when we see people who have addictions to alcohol and addictions to sugar in their beer and their pizza, they're looking for the glutomorphine and the casomorphine in the bread to feed the morphine to the worm colony.
ah,
Worms love morphine, okay?
uh-huh.
So how have we now been able to disable America, for instance? They're pouring trillions of dollars of fentanyl and or stronger opioids through the border to get the population's morphine, bringing their spiritual evolution so low that then they're going to be homeless and eating out of the street and eating out of a garbage can and getting the worms, and that will destroy their ability to reach their crown chakra opening to higher spiritual levels. Because if you're low in vibration, you can't open that crown up, which needs zinc and light and tyrosine to open up to the light. So we're keeping people in a state of satanic suppression, if you will, by
Yeah,
feeding them sex, drugs, and rock and roll and sugar and all the things that are pesticiding, polluting, and or you know using the jabberdew to introduce organisms into the body that are not natural to us, to which our immune systems are overwhelmed and cannot fight back.
yeah, and I mean that's what we're seeing. Autoimmune disease is, you know, a record high, and we're keeping people alive that and with a quality of life that really any you know person that's got their full faculties would never ever want. So we know we have a major problem in our hands, but we also have some phenomenal solutions, don't we? So people,
Absolutely. And this is a talk of hopefulness, people, not desperation. I mean, you can take my last 50 years of desperation of not knowing and having ignorance and knowledge and reverse that in a second by actually having a GPS map of what's going on the inside of you through voice analysis, through biofeedback technology that can read your body for these fingerprints. Do you resonate with vitamin C, high or low? Do you resonate with low zinc and high worms and psychosis? Yes. If you have those patterns, they're very reproducible and predictable. So by us mapping people with yours and my new technology, the Genius Voice Print, which uses the platonic solids of the wood, fire, earth, air, water signs of your body, that means your brain, your lungs and colon, your heart, your kidney, and your guts. They have different frequency patterns and different molecules and different colors of chakras that run those various different tracks, if you will. So our body is a multi-track mixer, and we're just using different color spectrums to run different organ systems, okay? And as I've been teaching you in my Health Safari show for the last year, every organ only works for 2 hours a day, then it hands off to the next organ and the next organ. So we believe, you and I, at least as instructors, that if we could give you back all the keys on the piano and we could give you a rhythm section, you could play your own rhythm back in tune to yourself rather than waiting for a disease to come and knock you off your feet as you go down, down, down in your vibration. What if we brought your vibration back up into tune, like the pitch pipe to the choir every time they started singing? My mom was a baritone in the Sweet Adelines, and she was the pitch pipe blower. So every time they'd go on stage, she'd pull out this little, We're singing in the key of A, kids. And so we have to tell our bodies to operate in the key of A, the key of Om, the key of all the keyboard of the piano. So my piano behind me here, I taped all the keys according to the minerals of the periodic table.
Fantastic.
Now, this is a fascinating story, if I may just tell you, because it's just so amazing. Some gentleman died and left in his trunk this pattern I have. Do I have it here? Okay, so when this gentleman died, one of my dear friends who's an expert in biofeedback, he knows that I'm interested in music. He says, I found this chart in this man's trunk of the piano keys matching the minerals of the world, and how on the other side, how if you go from low frequencies of 2, 4, 8, 16, and it doubles, you get up here into the spiritual frequencies.
Yes.
So here's where I'm sort of upside down to my scan here. This is the low frequencies of touch. And then we have the frequencies in the visible light spectrum of the 1,000 to 10,000 hertz in human beings for light. But above that, we have microwaves and cosmic waves and X-rays that are invisible, but there's spiritual vibration right up here called the spiritual electrons. And I believe that if you can purify the lower range by getting your brain in sync with 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and you're in sync with your brain's waves, then the other brain spiritual sides of you can come out as overtones.
Yeah.
So now we have digital computers that can give you this frequency down here, which is audible. And then we build up the amp coil, which is subaudible for PEMF, for the brain's magnetic field. And now we develop the Genius light bracelet that gives you the light and the magnetism and the sound to cover all of the human spectrum. Yeah. And then we can actually digitally just say the frequency of love is 528. But if I double that and double that and double that, I can give you a digital frequency of 6 decimal places that's like love with light frequencies, meaning I can send prayers into you with positive tuning vibrations on light or sound or magnetism. So I went through as an instructor of each of these areas as an instructor in biofeedback for 20 years. Then I became an instructor in magnetism for the last 10 years. And in the last couple of years, I've been an instructor in light therapy. And by combining all three of them, I believe I'm getting the best results I've ever gotten, because I'm getting the low vibrational worms out of the brain. I'm getting the neurotransmitters back to think straight and detoxify the body. And then when we clean the brain tells the rest of the body and all the other organs, clean yourself of all these heavy metals and poisons and plastics that are causing the bugs to want to live in you.
Yes, of course.
Now, the last punchline is that after I cleaned out everybody for bugs, they came back. I went, what? How come? Because we didn't change the soil upon which the bug grew. Mm-hmm. So by getting really deep into the deep reeds with you now, I believe that if we can pull the heavy metals out of you that deoxidize you, you will grow better oxygen carrying bugs in you, like probiotics, not the bad bugs. Mm-hmm. And if we can get the oxygen in your right body at the pH of 7.4, not an acidic body full of poisons and metals, or kidney failure or diabetic acid, or not an alkaline body that grows yeast and mold and cancer. Mm-hmm. We want to stay up the middle of the range, like hitting a baseball home run over the center field. We don't want to go out of bounds on the foul lines, right? So by using biofeedback to push you back to the center of the pitcher's mound, mm-hmm. then you're in control of the whole field. And that's what I call bioterrain correction.
And that's really how we stay well, is with a balanced bioterrain. And we were talking about that earlier today. My friend did a fermenting demo, and we were just saying how you can change your bioterrain very quickly, but it will always revert back unless you maintain the behaviours and the pH by what you think, drink, mm-hmm. see, believe, all the stuff that we know impacts our chemistry. Exactly. So, and I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that you maybe have the same problems. It's encouraging and inspiring people to keep doing what they need to do day after day after day until the body gets the opportunity to really lighten up again, which is onto that vibration where there is no suffering, there is no dis-ease. That's really where
it's hard to train people when they're toxic. Now, once they feel better, they love the program and they don't have to work at it so hard. But the problem is that it takes a lot of energy when you're already exhausted to do a detox.
Absolutely.
And the problem that I believe my errors overlooking my structural programs over the years were that if I went right on the jugular and went to the kill phase and tried to kill that candida, the candida would explode and release more alcohol. They'd be more drunk, more painful, more lethargic, and more migrainous, and they'd hate my program. And I'd create a Herxheimer reaction of dying off too quickly, that which took 20 years to grow. So I've reversed my process a little bit now by using biofeedback to fill up the reservoirs of their minerals, their antioxidants, their immune cells, and give them a 2 or 3 week of push up the natural nuts and bolts called the minerals that do the work of the enzymes, so that there's workers in the factory. So when you come in with your tornado, they can process and expel and excrete it. But if you don't open up the exits of the fire hall before you set a fire, these people are getting troubled too quickly and get discouraged.
Yes, the routes of elimination have got to be clear, and we can go in to talk about that the 12-week program you're designing. But I think as well the Hertz reaction, the detox reaction, that as soon as people start to feel worse, no matter how many times you tell them how to kind of nurse themselves through it, it's the mind just goes crazy and thinks it's not working, because I believe an absolute lack of understanding of how the body works.
Yeah.
And
the only solution to that is to give them a mathematical numerical test that says your metal scores used to be 777 and now they're 600 and now they're 400 and now they're 200 and now you lost your psychosis. Oh, and now you've lost your autoimmune disease, and you see you did strip mine those poisons out of yourself over 12 weeks or whatever it took through ionic foot baths or biofeedback or whatever you used. And there are many ways there are many ways, many roads to Rome. However, the road that is the one that they will continue is the one that will get them there. So I have had to slow my process down.
Yes, me too.
I know what I want to do. I know what they need, but the bridge to get them to walk the bootstraps across that bridge, they have to do it, because in the past, I knew so much that I'd say, okay, I'll do it for you. So I'll go into my biofeedback and I'll correct everything about them. But they didn't see on the screen what I was doing. So they didn't believe what I was doing until I sent them a report afterwards and said, did you see all the heavy metals I took out of you? Did you see all those poisons and parasites? And then I'd say to them, do you feel better? And they would say yes. And I said, well, then you must have had something in you that I took away to make you feel better. Would you agree? And then they go, well, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
So I say, so now my line is this: I, as a coach, will work as hard as you, but I will not work harder than you.
Yes.
And nobody works harder than me. So you're going to have to work hard to keep up to me.
Yeah. 100%.
However, I will work with you at the speed with which you can handle. And the way I can say that now is because I have their voice print to see whether they're going to tip out of their boat or whether they got a lot of reserve tank left. If they're full of red zones of inflammation and blue zones of exhaustion, maybe that's not the week to start your detox. Maybe you need to fill in all the enzymes, the minerals, the biofield, the energetic field, the chakras, the alignment, the pumping of the aura, and get them into a clear zone first. And then you go in and start selectively plucking the top issues for them.
Yes, I usually give a couple of different journeys for people to do, which one that is flooding and the one that's maybe going to be a little bit more uncomfortable. And they know, they're like, one of them makes me feel tired, and I said, yeah, that's how it works. Yeah, so there's a question here, and I think this is a question because I always talk about the P words: patience and persistence. Somebody's asking any kind of timeline of procedure to reverse and heal if you test this way.
So I think that every single person's different, so I'm reluctant to give one general thing. However, remember that almost every detox program, addiction program, drug rehab program, they all fail with recurrences after 10 weeks and they succeed after 12 weeks. I believe it takes about 3 months to rebuild your adrenals back into an out of the fight or flight mode. And the moment that you have an infection or a metal, your adrenals are on a fight or flight mode. And so they are going to cause you to have more cortisol and blinders on and more tunnel vision. Where's the tiger? And so people, as they heal, start getting wider vision and they get more relaxed. Now, I have decided last year, as you've been in my class, that I gave one lecture on every organ per month. I mean, I gave 4 lectures per month on every organ of the 12 organs to make 12-month health safari.
Yes.
At the end of every lecture, I did the nutrition of the organ, how to build it up and clean it, how to get rid of inflammation of it, and how to get rid of degeneration. So I built a library for every organ now that I'm just about to release called the Health Safari Program. And the fastest you could do it, presumably, would be 1 organ every day for 12 days, but that might be brutal. I have no idea if you could tolerate that.
I'll try it.
1 organ a week for 12 weeks, rotating by giving the yang first to open up the hollow tubes and then the yin of that. So gallbladder first, then liver, then bladder first, then kidney, then intestines open up, then heart, then the bowel, colon opened up, then the lung. So if you do it in that matched pair set, I think you'll get more success because you're opening the vacuum for exits first, then pushing in all the good stuff, and you're moving those old trains out of the train station.
Yeah.
So if you did 12 organs in 12 weeks, I would like to join with you and some of our more interesting clients and see if we can get numerical improvements without too much detox reactions by going clean, kill, clean, kill, clean, kill. And when I say kill, what I really mean is go dormant, because these bugs aren't needing to be killed if you put them to sleep at a different pH.
Yes.
So you don't have to have a big Herxheimer reaction by blowing all the yeast up. You move the pH of the body from 7.9 to 7.4, and the yeast cannot grow in you and can't multiply and divide. So you can put the colony to sleep, according to a DNA expert I worked with, who said that every different bug in the world has a specific DNA that can be lulled to sleep with music.
There's a lot of people popping in here. I'll be a test subject. I'll be a test subject.
There you go. So we could have an international trial where we decide that we're going to take 5 people placebo and 37 people and see if we can cause some change in their status. And the reason I'm being so sure about this is that I don't just know this because I've studied it. We now have the genius tool to numerically structure a probability score. And this probability score is 95 to more percent accurate, because the software that we check your voice print with, when you say A, E, I, O, U, our software is measuring that 22 times. So the specificity and sensitivity of that measurement is super accurate.
Yes.
So when it says you've got heavy metals at 770 and candida at 760, and then you do a detox foot bath or a biofeedback session, or you do psyllium and you take probiotics and you do whatever we say, like your body will tell us what remedies you're craving too, right? So I don't make a mistake and give you the wrong drug or the wrong herb. It says you need pulsatilla for candida. You need frankincense for worms. So by giving them back the exact remedy they need in electrical fingerprints, your clients don't have to run around town and look for 50,000 remedies at $40 a pop. You're giving them the remedies as you're doing the therapy, and you're doing it simultaneously. So the synergism of this method is so logarithmically faster than anything I've done. Yeah. Because I'm not just cleaning them. Wherever I suck them empty, I'm filling their putting green back in with the good herbs or vitamins at the same time in the same session, so they don't have so many recurrences of falling backwards.
Yeah. Now, I absolutely love this app. I mean, I can just spend hours and hours and days and weeks, and I've been doing that. But I think, people that want to heal, they're looking for, what's the easiest way for me to do it? And clearly,
this is the easiest way, but I want you to understand something that really is hard to comprehend, how amazing the body is. The space program spent $6 million studying astronauts to see how they could feel better in space when they were in a gravityless zone. And they found out that broadcasting 33 to 66 hertz for the brain for 8 minutes twice a day was sufficient enough to maintain your body in perfect health. 8 minutes twice a day is now the program that's on the IMRS mat, right? That says you can ground the body with an electrical field And once your electrical field is around you, it buffs off about 12 hours of negative energy coming at you. So if you can use your Genius program on your cell phone, broadcast it to your light bracelet for 8 minutes twice a day when you're getting up and out of bed or when you're getting into bed at night, which are the most vulnerable theta wave areas when your body is the most open to learning. So if you just did 8 minutes getting in and out of bed every morning as your routine, you could be walking around doing your workout, brushing your teeth, combing your hair, who knows what you're doing, but it's as little as that can cause a profound difference in your bioelectric field, causing more resistance to disease. If you want to spend another half hour a day using the cleansing of the organs, where all your nutrition, the organs, inflammation, and degeneration is already mopped up and cleaned up as you go. And please remember, somebody who's very sick down here, they're trying to get up to here. They can't jump up there like that or they'll fall right back down. It's too big of a leap and they're going to have a relapse. But if you gave them one little step, they don't fall back. And then a little step, they don't fall back. And after 12 little steps, they worked up that staircase to the threshold where at least every organ in the body has been cleaned once. And thereafter, the second cleansing will not have the deep, spots on the floor that need the elbow grease as much. Or maybe when you clean every little organ little by little, once the floor has just had its first mop, now you can see that big stain. Thereafter, the second pass of 12 weeks might be much more vigorous, right down the gutter on that, severe tapeworm in your pancreas causing your diabetes. And that's going to take tapeworm hatches every 5 days for 2 months. So you're going to have to do your tapeworm treatment for 2 or 3 months. Amoebas take 2 months. Worms take 3 months. Candida takes 18 months to get out of your body. So if you can speed that up for people so they're not so frustrated, they're not having to have decompensation where suddenly their yeast is so bad that they got a gout flare up. Now they go to the doctor and they take all kinds of high blood pressure and blood sugar pills and gout pills. But those pills are now causing the liver to be distracted with the processing of these pharmaceutical right spinning agents. I'd rather give you left spinning light, left spinning herbs, left spinning chakras, left spinning living frequencies that don't compete with your natural cleansing process.
Yeah, and you would accompany that with a Candida supportive diet.
Yeah.
Because I think this is the thing, we're actually, I'm going to be talking about cravings and all the different reasons that you would crave. And clearly, flukes and worms and parasites can be one of them. But an interesting thing that Stuart said to me the other day, that they're now thinking that EMF, a lot of these EMF frequencies actually are causing the worms to go crazy.
That's correct.
So it's really it's just how dumb we are, how we've done so many things without really fully understanding that we cause an effect. And if when people are struggling with sugar addiction and alcohol addiction and all the shame, I hadn't really thought about the shame that goes along with that.
It's so misplaced.
It's totally misplaced because it's, why would you? Well, I think you feel embarrassed because maybe feel you're out of control, and that's embarrassing. I don't know why, but when you start to understand all this stuff, you feel like it's not your fault. You just don't know. You don't understand. Could you?
I had a sex addict come to me, and when I scanned him, he was just rampant with prostate worms, making him have a tickling sensation all day long that he thought or mistook as arousal, and the low zinc in him from constant masturbation and constant sexual practices made him very low in zinc from the worms, low in zinc for erectile dysfunction. When I dewormed this guy with full-blown antibiotics and biofeedback and whatever, he kind of disappeared out of my practice for a while. And several months later, he came back and he said, I didn't really need to see you for a medical condition. I just wanted to come back to thank you because since that day you did that treatment on me, every time I passed by a massage parlor, I didn't have the overwhelming urge that I must go in there.
Wow.
Now, after he started saying this, I started thinking, well, worms want to date. They want to copulate with another worm colony. So the people who are most wormed up with their big belly of worms, another person can come along beside them and the worms in their belly want to date the worms in that person's belly. And these two people think they're attracted to each other when in fact it's their worms that are attracting them. And this is why I don't like 12-step alcoholic groups, because most of them haven't dewormed themselves. and they start dating somebody else in the alcoholic 12-step program and just trading more worms. Wow. I think the 12-step program should have a mandatory deworming with it to stop the worms, which are the alcoholics, so that people wouldn't spend 25 years blaming themselves in the wrong way, saying, I'm the bad guy here. I must just not be in control of my impulses. Now, what is impulse control? I want to touch on this for a second. The impulse control comes from the amygdala of the brain's limbic system, and it's run by zinc and copper. So if you have enough zinc and copper, you hold on to it and you hold your dopamine focus. When you have a zinc burst, you release dopamine and you run for the tiger, or you focus and you concentrate and you plan your life. But the zinc and copper are regulated by lithium between them on a teeter-totter. And if you have a worm that's stealing all the zinc out of you, you lose the impulse control of the amygdala to hold back an orgasm. So you would have premature ejaculation. You would lose the impulse control to go gambling, and you want a dopamine surge. So you're going to run into the casino because you got no zinc to hold back that dopamine need. So as I've been deworming and putting zinc back into my folks, their addictions are going down. Their orgasms are coming up. Their erectile dysfunction is going away. One jockey came to me with a PSA of 900 saying they're going to cut my testicles off tomorrow. And I said, well, what do you do for a living? He says, I shovel the manure of the horses out of the stalls. Mm-hmm. I said, well, haven't you dewormed yourself in your 23-year career? No, never. So I dewormed this guy, and his PSA of his prostate goes from 900 down to 90.
Wow.
And he didn't have his testicles cut off. So he sent me a big box of smoked salmon to thank me for protecting his genitals. But it's these crazy stories because I get to see the worst of the worst because I'm an international instructor. The people who don't usually get well, they send the more rare cases to me, and I get to see some strange things. But the farther they go down this pit hole of strangeness, you can bet there's more metals or microbes. Yes. So my speech tomorrow in our class is going to be called Metals and Microbes. And I'm going to show you how the metals make you grow the bugs. And just killing the bugs isn't enough. You've got to bring the metal poisoning, the pesticides, and that toxic load out of the body on a regular basis over a long period of time. And this is how your mitochondria can recover and be living to 140 or 300 years old.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's not really, it's the degeneration story. It's just another disease. It's another label that people follow when they just don't actually understand you're basically getting eaten from the inside out.
But if I tell people that, what happens? The bugs in them know, she knows that I'm an invader and she's coming to kill me. So they try to hide. They will move from another organ. They'll move from your liver to your kidney if you're doing a liver cleanse. They'll move around the body and try to evade what you're doing, okay? And this is where biofeedback works on the adult, the larva, and the baby, and the DNA level. So the colony is unable to reproduce itself so easily and come back and start all over again and again and again.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think the mistake I've made, I mean, when I went to India, I took the vaccines, I think it's yellow fever, and I don't know I can't remember what else you got. That's what really tipped my health over the edge.
Me as well. Same thing.
Really, chronic fatigue. And I didn't put two and two together. It was, it was a little bit after I realised what had happened. And that's when I got myself to Canada, actually. I was living in Whistler. And I just thought I need to get on a cleanse and a detox. And, within 6 weeks, I was magnificently better. Yeah. Instead of looking to go to my bed at 6 p.m, I was back to life. Yeah. But the thing was, I made the mistake, which I realise now, which was not looking after the larvae and the eggs. And so then, inevitably the situation recurs because the terrain was temporarily, looking quite good.
The analogy here is, would you cut your grass in the summer when it grows long?
Yeah, I know, exactly.
Would you cut your crabgrass in the summer when it grows long? Yeah. Would you plant a lot of seeds on a putting green so that the crabgrass won't grow because it's just so dense with good green grass that there's no room for that crabgrass to get in there, right? So our job isn't to kill the crabgrass as much as to put the putting green lawn so dense in probiotics and good enzymes that it's just too competitive to let these other bugs grow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And can you talk about Candida and yeast infections? Because, I mean, to be honest, pretty much everybody that I read for, that's an issue. And I know we go back to the heavy metals, so I'm looking at zeolite. It's much easier to take than the bentonite. So I'm really liking that.
I do believe you hit on something very, 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 very sinister, crucial, and almost invisible. So when you have an insult to the body, the monocytes, you've heard of the white blood cells. We have lymphocytes for viruses. Bacteria are fought by neutrophils. Heavy metals are fought by basophils. Allergies or parasites are fought by eosinophils. And then the one left over is called the monocyte, which is the Pac-Man that eats up the bigger things. So yeast is so large a molecule, unlike a tiny virus or a mini bacteria. A yeast is a big, huge bud. And so it requires the monocytes to come and shoot tumor necrosis factor alpha and to engulf and eat up a yeast. You need more white blood cells of the monocyte family. And this comes back to when I started our talk today about how the monocyte was the only blood test I could see wrong in people's CBC, complete blood count. So what I noticed after studying this at great detail is that yeast, when yeast is fed sugar, it starts fermenting B vitamins plus sugar into wine or beer. So yeast makes alcohol. And that's what makes you tired, makes your liver lose its B vitamin B1. That's the alcohol dehydrogenase, which causes brain fog, low DNA, and memory loss. So people with candida have brain fog because their alcohol poisoning of their liver has knocked all their B vitamins out of their liver and they can't think straight. Now, if I gave you all the B vitamins back, guess what's going to happen? The yeast is going to take all those Bs and make another quart of beer in your belly. And when the beer or wine is fermented by candida, it has a particular nasty side effect called acetone nail polish remover and hexane gas as other byproducts besides alcohol. And these are deadly to the islet cells that make insulin. The islet cells of Langerhans in your pancreas are little oil reservoirs that make insulin. Since nail polish remover can dissolve a nail, right? It can dissolve these oil-based islet cells in your pancreas, triggering diabetes. So a British sergeant in the British Army confessed to me a secret that you're not allowed in the Army if your monocyte count is abnormal because they know you've already got chronic fatigue before you entered the Army. So he said that he would dispel any guy who wanted to get out of the Army if he had a high monocyte count. Wow. And then he showed me that that's the exact predictor of diabetes and eclampsia in women who are pregnant, who are eating so much sugar that they're feeding the baby all that acetone, and the baby's pancreas gets burnt before they come out, and now you got a diabetic baby on your hands because the mother had candida. Another complication here is that candida has a special receptor on its surface for steroid hormones of cortisol, so it goes up in stress, progesterone, so it goes up with your period, and pregnancy hormone. So every time a woman has more hormones, she's more prone to yeast. So if we don't get the probiotics and the good zeolites in a woman before her period, she's likely to have recurring, slow-growing yeast, and suddenly she's got endometriosis or ovarian cancer because the yeast puncture a hole into your ovaries and use a straw to suck out all your progesterone, leaving you with Purkinje and celiac antibodies that chew up the ovaries, causing polycystic ovary or ovarian cancer or infertility. So I believe that once you've got yeast, you're going to have ovarian failure, diabetic failure, blood sugar failure, liver failure, heart enlargement, hypertension, high cholesterol. So you might as well realize when I treat that yeast, all of those things are going to get better and better. That's your long-term ticket. Now, here's the problem. I've tried to treat candida for 20 years, and my successes were few unless I took the heavy metals out, because yeast grows at a pH of 7.8 and an ORP, very low oxygen. So if you don't get the oxygen and the pH better, you will not get rid of that yeast. And the way to do that is to suck out the heavy metals and the plastics through an ionic foot bath is the best way I know. Instead of just giving you a little laxative, which takes a few metals out, using the biofeedback that we have, gets the metals out of the capillaries, gets the metals out of the artery plaque, gets the metals out of your brain, knocks out the thyroid mercury so that you can get your thyroid back up to speed and warm up the body to not grow yeast anymore. So I believe that the Genius program is the best technology that I've used, that I've written the programs for, that I'm finding the best results on, and that is the easiest. Because that gives the control back to the person instead of us. Like, I can tell you you have yeast, but you wouldn't believe me because you're drunk on your own ferment.
Yeah.
I could tell you you're depressed, but you don't know it. I could tell you that you're about to have a psychotic breakdown and you're delusional from your worms, but it's in the middle of the month where you weren't at the full moon, so you think I'm normal. But then when you call me at the end of the month on the full moon and you're ready to kill somebody, I would say to you, no, you're not. Your worms are just out of hand tonight. Let's get you on some frankincense and I'll give you, and suddenly, now, if I was wrong, these persons would have committed suicide and they would be dead by Monday. But when I deworm them, they're unpsychotic by Monday and they don't want to kill themselves. So how can you explain that me deworming them stopped their psychosis if it's not somehow connected?
Yeah, no, you can't. That's as simple.
The problem is I had one lady, and I only had one complaint in my entire career. And this lady came in and I saw that she had pinworms on her vulva when I did her vaginal exam. And I said that, she asked me if it was contagious. And I said, yes, well, your sex partners can pass mucous membrane parasites between each other. And she said, well, I'd like you to meet my husband and explain that to him. So the husband comes in and this man was full of massive 2-centimeter gaping pustular tapeworm nests, bleeding and sweeping out of his whole body. He was covered with trichinosis tapeworm. And I was completely grossed out and shocked and said, you guys both got to go on some medication. She complained to the college that I told her that it was a contagious issue and that now she doesn't want to have sex with her husband. So I was to blame. Now, that case went through 3 years of paperwork for me, and I turned out to be correct, but it left that stain on me that then led to me being noticed by the college for using biofeedback. Then the college came and put me through 23 committees and 438 letters to stop looking for these parasites. Stop looking for autism related worms. And by the end of it all, I realized that they weren't just stupid. They were maliciously trying to prohibit me. And a reporter came and told me that they're doing the same to 29 other natural medicine doctors in Canada to shut us up from bringing in these technologies. So I went back to the courtroom and I said, I'm going to sue you for $333 million in racketeering if you don't start the complementary medicine policy and allow people to use new technologies. So about 48 hours later, they called me and said, we started the new policy. Please don't sue us. So then I sent my resignation letter in and I resigned my medical license. And I went over to the College of the World Organization of Humanitarian Medicine and I got 4 new degrees so that I become a PhD and a doctor of osteopathy, a doctor of Ayurvedic medicine, and a doctor of Chinese acupuncture, and now a doctor of frequency medicine, light matrix therapist, and a biofeedback instructor. So I left my medical degrees, however hard fought they were not doing the job, people. And I'm honestly saying to you that if you're trusting your doctor who has a limited scope of practice and whose actual college has forbade them to look into other methods other than pharmaceutical, or they will be out of scope of practice and be sectioned, then you will not find this information from your doctor. They are not allowed to tell you what I'm telling you. And I'm only telling you because I gave up my medical license and went into natural medicine in order to educate you on a better method, what I believe is a better method. And if their method was so great, we should have cured diabetes and heart disease and cancer by now, but we haven't. We're only placating it as a symptom management. So I really strongly want to thank you for bringing me, Lilia, to voice the idea that we individually can have control of our lives. And we could do even better if we had a GPS to coordinate where are we stuck and where are we fine, and to bring our limited resources for free using bioenergetic vibrational music instead of expensive drugs or invasive procedures that have negative side effects that are costly or delayed or inaccessible because you're in a remote area. Now we can send you the playlist and you can enlighten yourself. Now this is a far better, more empowering methodology, and
Absolutely.
people who use it, they do appreciate it. The people who get it from me, and I've given out 100 free sessions, and the ones I gave for free, they never used it. If they don't have a skin in the game, they think it's bogus.
Yes.
So now I tell people, I don't care what you're going to donate to me this session, but I'm not going to do this for free, because then you won't appreciate me and you won't appreciate the technology.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a bit of a stretch for some people. I mean, to me, it makes common sense. We're energetic, we're frequency. I teach people to change their frequency by choosing to what they think, how they phrase their words, to let go of emotions, etc. So, and we know that everything has a frequency. And that's what's genius about the insight, literally genius, is that it's just simply frequencies and digitally changing the frequencies. But that's a stretch for people if you don't understand the kind of quantum aspect to being a human.
Have you noticed that this week, I would like you to look up, your people might want to look up this YouTuber. His name is Stefan Burns, Stefan Burns. He's a spiritual biophysicist who gives the solar weather on the effect of your Schumann wave every day due to sunbursts.
Yes.
And this week he showed that the Schumann wave, which normally rides about 7.83 hertz, there were so many sunspots and magnetic storms of biophotons hitting the earth that the Schumann wave doubled to 14, 28, 33, 44 hertz and opened up our crown chakras of the whole planet with frequency, ascension, vibrational codes that are waking up the people of the earth with more awareness. Whether they like it or not, we are in a frequency pool, and the insert of the location of the planet Earth in the middle of the universe right now, having bathed with all this high gamma wave light, it's literally opening up our spiritual window of our crown chakra, whether you like it or not. Now, the people who are low vibrating, they may not get the full effect of it because they're so dirty and toxic that they can't open up their crown to get to that spiritual enlightenment state of art. But it's our job to get them the training wheels to work up the mountain step by step to get their vibrational frequencies, because we're not going to be leaving the golden nebula for 2,000 years now. The planet Earth has moved into a part of the galaxy that is going to be bathed with light for 2,000 years, and the people of low vibration will die off. They say that some people are actually disappearing into mush because their bodies can't handle the frequency. I heard of last night, I've never heard about this, some school bus children in Germany just evaporated or vanished because their vibration rate was insufficient or something. I've never heard of that story. Have you heard about that?
No.
I'm going to have to look it up. But apparently lower vibrational, really ancient, lower souls cannot handle this earth. And that's why we talk about splitting into the 3D earth, where the lower vibrational souls will exist in a lower plane. And those who are aware and pure enough can handle this high vibrational level of gamma waves on our brains. We will ascend as the new earth of the 5D, aware, spiritual, able to handle the dichotomies of the earth in unality instead of duality.
Yeah. And breaking away from the corruption and the greed and the power structures and the old systems that are, you can see them disintegrating in front of our eyes anyway.
And yesterday on the on Jared's podcast, he said that the people who are, shall we say, of lower vibration, they're dropping off the planet literally by the hundreds of thousands. And that the population of Earth is dropping down quite rapidly. And that a study came out showing 850,000 Chinese people had died, and that's almost 1 million people suddenly gone, right? So if the world is changing in its vibration, we ourselves have to evolve with Mother Earth by connecting to her, because she is going to go through a birthing process of coming to another higher level. And if we aren't connected with her, then we can't ascend at the same speed with which she's adjusting to this new vibration. So we need to get in our bare feet out in the ground. We need to be in nature. We need to have quieter time so the brain can actually absorb these gamma waves, which are turning on 10 dormant chromosomes. Can you believe that? I mean, we have a 12 stranded Christ DNA, and 10 of those chromosomes were turned off. So they say that right now, those 10 chromosomes are being turned on for those who are pure enough or able to tolerate the vibration. And that this will now bring on us not only the sight, sound, smell, and taste, but 50 new senses, telepathy senses, visions, ability to see auras, clairvoyance, clairaudience. So as we ascend, we will be a better self-monitoring Homo sapien sapien hybrids as
Yes.
we learn to get ourselves into this position.
And the way I see it is really that all the work that we're doing is to help people manage the turbulence that's going to come with the change, because, and certainly, you know, as the new frequencies come in, it can be very uncomfortable. I certainly have been feeling some discomfort. So, but it's so what? How do you manage that? How do you navigate it? Do you cave into the victim consciousness, or do you allow everything to just pass and keep moving into the higher vibrations with trust and faith? You have to have that,
Well,
because
trust and faith is it, but you can't be trusting and faithful if you're toxic. So we have to really understand that you really do need to flush the toilet on the old in order to bring in some new. And I think that this is where you and I, Lilith, can be detox experts this year. And I will be happy to broadcast every week a new way to help you get cleaner. And, you know, I hope that we can get more people following us to understand that it isn't difficult, it isn't toxic, it isn't expensive, and it isn't harmful, and it isn't hard. And in fact, once you get into the groove of it, you really do tend to love it because you're feeling so great and you're getting your energy back.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
and on these days when the sun is bursting, I am in bed sleeping for 3 or 4 more hours being downloaded. So if you're very tired right now, or you're having headaches, or ringing in the ears, or digestive tract issues, you are receiving these reprogramming codes, and you need to take some time out and slow down your doing and connect with the being of Earth a bit more right now, because this year Pluto is returning, and Pluto is revealing all old secrets. The expose of what's been done to us, the whistleblowers coming out right now, the changes in the banking system, the changes in so many systems, and the artificial intelligence that is being promoted to give us a better chance of survival versus allowing it to fall into evil hands and just manipulate us further. We have to be vigilant onto whose side of good or evil are you on.
So fantastic. Listen, before we finish, can we go over heavy metals? People are going to want to know, what can I do? Well, first of all, they can do the free voice print, which we can really see how, you know, severe the issues are, if there are any. And then would you zeolite for heavy metals, and coriander and green herb, anything green really helps to get the hair. But I would use zeolite. Would you?
Yes, I use a combination of multiple things because some people can handle it. For instance, spirulina is a heavy metal chelator, but certain people like type B blood don't handle spirulina as well, so they might want the zeolite. I personally also use psyllium with chicory. So a tablespoon of psyllium is fiber to scrape all the candida off the walls. The candida are heavy metal scavengers. So if you scrape the candida out, you'll half the metals, because the metals are sequestered in the candida cells. So using psyllium is a scraping tool to push the bowels clean, but I add chicory powder, which is the prebiotic to probiotics. So I have a tablespoon of chicory and psyllium on the way to bed, and then the next morning you're going to have a very large evacuating bowel movement so that the yeast isn't collecting and growing over time. Secondly, you can't get rid of metals unless you have enough minerals to catalyze the enzymes to get it out of you. The major enzyme that takes metals out of the body is glutathione, which is made of selenium and sulfur. Guess what tapeworms eat? Selenium and sulfur, zinc, copper, magnesium, manganese. So when you look at your voice print, if a person has a parasite, they're only missing the 5 vitamins that the parasites love. So the minerals missing, I see this pattern all the time, and I invite you to look for it on your Genius. If a person's minerals are low in sulfur, zinc, cobalt, copper, and iron that make blood, they probably have a parasite that's in their blood eating their main minerals away from them. Whereas if they were malnourished, they would be low in every mineral in the body. But if there's a thief in the house, it's preferentially going to steal from your till just the valuable vitamins for its colony. So this is the pattern I'm noticing. So when I see a lot of heavy metals or a lot of tapeworm, then I remineralize the body with diatomite, which is diatomaceous earth, but in homeopathic pellet form. It's got the 12 tissue salts that run your body, the electrolytes of sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, silica, iron. Excuse me. So water also can be put into a structured water format using the Genius tray. When you put the water at 1000 hertz, it absolutely can absorb a huge spike of light, and light can absorb the frequencies of healing more than anything else. So structured water with light in it, many minerals to correct your pH, and then probiotics and prebiotics to get the blood stickiness and the vitamin K to clean your spleen. And by having that background, now at least I can start the dumping. Now, one thing is this: mercury 3+ has to be neutralized to mercury 2+, mercury 1+ to make it mercury neutral in order to leave the brain or thyroid. So you have to put antioxidants in there to give extra free electrons to neutralize the mercury. And if you don't have enough glutathione to donate, or vitamin C 10,000 a day, or vitamin D and K to keep your blood unsticky, you could feel very much worse during a metal detox.
So would you supplement glutathione?
Definitely, but glutathione can't be absorbed. So it's a big marketing scam right now that glutathione can't pass the cell wall. Now, one company called Ribosine is putting ribose sugar on cysteine. The body has 700 times more affinity for ribose sugar, so it sucks the ribose in and drags the cysteine into the cell so that you can make N-acetylcysteine. But recently, working with bodybuilders, I learned a fantastic trick called NMN, nicotinamide mononucleotide. It is a precursor to NAC, but it passes through the cell wall beautifully. So you take the precursor to NAC, mononucleotide, NMN, and then inside the cell, you form your own glutathione from scratch, much better. So that we're starting to realize just taking supplements where companies add adulterants or incipients or large molecules that would never pass, like, for instance, collagen. Do you think that you could pass a large collagen molecule through your gut? No way. So you can take the precursors to collagen and let your body reassemble the smaller chunks within you. Same thing with, cholesterol pills. Most people don't realize that statin drugs are an anti-candida, antifungal antibiotic. And they just happen to notice that since candida causes high cholesterol, if they kill the candida with a statin drug, your cholesterol goes down. But in fact, you're killing fungus in the body as an antifungal antibiotic. Now, how many months would you like to take that? 1, 2, 10? How many years have people been on statins? Which, what do? They cause dementia by sucking all the fats out of your brain. They cause all kinds of liver disorders and inflammatory conditions. So I don't want you having to take an antibiotic every day of your life. I want you to take a probiotic every day of your life. By using acidophilus, you're giving back the good grass instead of the crabgrass. And finally, I would say to you that the zeolite does help also remove pesticides, which are xenoestrogens. And since yeast and worms love estrogens, then anybody who's got parasites and pesticides in their body needs to clean out that liver through, steam baths or ionic foot baths or intermittent fasting, or however you want to go through a detox program, so long as it's semi-intermittent to allow your body to recover between sessions. Going into a hot sauna every day, but not replacing all the minerals that you sweat out is not a good idea.
So, because that's really the thing, isn't it? I mean, I feel I don't want to look into people's bioterrain and then not be able to give them, the right advice to help them rebalance it, because especially where I live, I know everyone. So, you want to,
you might want to say, build up the 3 pillars of health, which is the minerals, the enzymes, and the probiotics. Everybody in your entire country should be eating on. So that's not a big leap. But if you're doing that and you still feel tired, would you consider a detox? And would you consider a detox of one of your organs? And once you did that, would you consider a detox of your paired organ? Or what about all 12 organs? Would you like to join my program where I give you an organ of the month club, and you can work through the year on bringing back your health slowly over time at a pace you can handle? Now, some people are very healthy, like athletes, although I must say the athletes who I thought were the healthiest, they've been swimming in ocean waters in their triathlon and being in tropical countries with parasites, having sex with strangers. They have a lot of parasites too that can really interfere with their performance of zinc, which makes you jump out of the starting blocks with an adrenaline burst. So I've been finding that there's not too many people who I don't think need a detox. It's just whether they're willing to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got to get fed up being sick and tired of being sick and tired before you will do it. And I think it's about belief. A lot of people still think if the doctor's not told them to do it, then it can't be relevant.
Well, the only way to make them pay attention to it is say, can you take this mirror? I have every patient pick up a hand mirror so that I don't make them feel too self-conscious. I say, can you look at your tongue in the mirror? Now, do you see a big crack up the middle? Then you got a crack in your gut. Do you see a bunch of coating on your tongue? Then your gut is coated. Do you see your tongue is all cracked and swollen around the rim? Then your liver and your spleen and cleaning organs are cracked and swollen. And when you look on your eyes, are you dark here? And are you full of, shit around the iris? And are you having bad posture? So I try to force them to look at themselves.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
And the reason I do that is that they'll never look as bad as the first day I meet them.
Yeah.
So I always ask them to take a tongue photo and a selfie the first day they meet me, plus their weight and their measurements, because once they start unbloating, their weight on the scale may not go down, but their inches on the waist start decompressing as we get all these bad gases and funguses out of them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, fantastic.
So I agree with you that you have to. I would rather you sell somebody a plan of a 12-week program so that they actually have to have some skin in the game. So I tell them it's $400 a month for 3 months.
Uh-huh.
And if you can continue with this for me, I will reevaluate you with another device after 3 months, and we'll see what your numbers look like, and then we'll reevaluate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So would you use you use Skio or Quest 9?
I use the Quest 9. I mean, I have the Skio, but I just upgraded to the Quest 9. I just got a brand new, gaming computer to run it on. And the Quest 9 was revamped in November in Greece at their annual convention.
Uh-huh.
And they really, really did some incredible changes to that program by removing, the program was 5 gigabytes, and they removed 2.5 gigabytes of old unnecessary coding, coloring, and other things that were making the program run more efficiently. And they recalibrated all the triangular, square wave, and the cutting waveforms.
Uh-huh. And
they also removed, and every one of the pictures that was in that was removed and added with a more modern picture. So I think that in truth, having in medicine, we like to measure twice and cut once. So by having a measurement on a Quest 9 or a vital scan, which gives you all the neurotransmitters, insulin, and inflammatory markers, by having some kind of a measure when they first meet you, even if it's just a tape measure, showing the person that they've changed numerically, I find is the one way that I can continue to encourage them, because I say, way to go. Look at the changes that you've instrumented. Fantastic. And it wasn't so hard, was it? And can you keep this up? And what's the hardest part of the routine for you? Can we alter it to make it easier for you, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. The HRV, I've done that before, even like before and after a cold water dip, before and after a breathwork session, just so that people can see the impact that you have in your electromagnetic field, because that's really, I'm much more interested in that.
Yeah, me too.
And, getting more and more light through, and what we can do from a Heal Scotland perspective, we're very much about inclusivity, intermittent fasting, everybody can do it. Things that people can do for free, reconnection to nature, cold water, all the stuff that, we know really, really helps. And then getting together as this community. But also we have people who definitely need a lot more help than just protocols that we
Well,
can.
this brings me to say, what about group therapy where I broadcast a deworming concert onto a scan like you're doing right now? And could you broadcast this room to a group of people that they're getting dewormed by the concert I'm giving you live? Then we could give free concerts for 30 or 3,000, or in my new conference room, I can have 20,000 people. So
Yeah,
this year, I'm going to try and merge my music and my medicine and give a concert of healing. Maybe people don't want to hear all the anatomy I teach. Maybe they don't want to know about the physiology. Maybe they just say, come on, just like make me well.
Yeah.
I don't want to take your class, Dr. Drake. I don't care about what you're teaching. I
Thank
want
you
to
for the
get
music.
you to do it on me, okay? So I have, and I'm sure that you have the same thing. Everybody in your own family doesn't believe what you do because they're too close to the fire, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
I did have a family reunion and invited 200 relatives, and they didn't know what I was doing, but I added the client onto the Quest 9 of my home with the latitude, longitude, and address of my home. And I put the skio on ascension codes, detox codes, laughter, happiness. We have never had such a harmonious party. The children were absolutely running around giggling as if they were on helium. And when you stepped off my driveway onto the parking lot, you could feel the drop of the frequency field.
Fantastic.
So my family kept saying, can we have another party like we had at your house? I don't know why, but it was just the best feeling party.
Now that's probably something we could do in Scotland.
Exactly. And what about us taking it onto a stadium where the soccer players are dropping dead? Let's broadcast the frequency of mitochondrial oxygen and or harmony. Let's stop wars by broadcasting love. I mean, where is the limit in what I could broadcast, and to whom is only the people who are willing to tune into our broadcast, or how we can get them to get elevated in their spirit enough that they can tap into the universal frequencies up here that we're trying to get them to tap into, which is Mother Earth and universal frequency.
Absolutely.
Most people don't understand there's a universal channel.
I know, absolutely. And it's so exciting stuff. It really, really is. And listen, I would love if you can agree to come back to talk about the Insight app in more detail, because I really just wanted people to meet you, to understand the overview that you have, because it's very difficult for me to describe to people exactly the level of experience and understanding of, I don't know anybody else. I've never met anybody that has that overview that you have. And then bringing the Insight app, which makes it almost, because I've got a lot of friends that are healers, and very, and leaders in their field. So I know there'll be people be interested in actually having the technology for themselves, but there'll also be lots of people who are struggling and who want to access the technology. So it'd be really great to have you on again. If we can steal another hour and a half of your time, that would be
anything for you, Lilia.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And now let's see, are there any more questions before we sign off? And I'm sure that Deborah will be happy to. Too many questions. How much zeolite should we take?
Zeolite is one way, and also bentonite. The yeast buster kit is a tablespoon of zeolite or bentonite, caprolytic acid, and psyllium. So caproyl or caprolytic acid in olive oil is the treatment for candida. So if you're trying to look for some general accessible detox program, a candida cleanse for a couple of weeks, just getting the old out of the train station is a great place to start. But I believe that having the vibrational frequencies makes it so much more easy and tolerable, because the bugs are already suppressed and not Herxheimering before you try to do this detox.
I would recommend to take the sugar and the white and the simple carbs out as well.
Got to be out, because the parasites only eat sugar, right? Humans eat complex carbs. We don't have the sucrase enzyme called, to break sugar in half. It's a 6-ring and a 5-ring sugar. When you break that in half, the glucose goes to the brain, but the fructose only goes to the liver, causing fatty liver. So the major cause of fatty liver in the world right now is excess sugar. Absolutely. And it's added to everything. It's on every label.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to start growing potatoes in my own backyard this summer. I'm going to try and do I live in a new farm area where there's all kinds of fresh vegetables here. I'm going to really work hard this year about getting back to Mother Nature.
Are you in Toronto, or did you move to Nova Scotia?
I moved to Nova Scotia just when it caught on fire and had to be evacuated. So I ended up moving back to Ontario into a farmhouse that got infested with mice. So I moved to a lodge which got infested with mice. So I said, to hell with that. So I went and we got a brand new model home on a beautiful forest and a pond in Wasaga Beach, near the most beautiful, longest freshwater beach of 23 miles in the world. I'm living in paradise. I'm happy as a pig. And I've got a beautiful new broadcast studio I just finished building with a music broadcasting, and I just pulled out of storage my 60 city tour of all my videos I took around the world. I figured, why put them in storage? Why not I just open up a library? The Drake Library or the Drake Academy is going to open up, and I'm just going to put all the things I've learned about all of this up on, see if people want to learn about it, sign in and donate, and we can perhaps build a reservoir to teach the next generation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this information is so fascinating. Everybody that has met you and everybody I've sent the videos to is just like, yeah, this is what we need to know, especially if we're going to start, as our NHS is crumbling here, the queues, staff are all under so much stress. It's a goon show. So we're going to have to really
I really do think that it wouldn't be an overestimation to state that we live in a time of war.
Exactly.
And that the playing field of the war is no longer on the battlefield, but on your body's battlefield. And that if you don't get into the war as a soldier to protect your own self, you're in deep water and you're going to be sinking. So I have some I have heavy intel from my super soldier friends that teach me that we're not out of the woods yet, and that we have to be vigilant and get an army of self-contained, self-promoting, self-healing individuals, so that the actual totality of our collective consciousness is impermeable to the forces of evil, which are held in the hands of practically 8 men in the world. It's not a lot of people, but they wield the money power. And we have to understand that money is not what the problem is. It's the currency of life, the currency of your energetic field. What makes you alive is your identity, your vitality, your energy. It's not how much money you have, right?
I know.
Remember, I am as equally valuable now. When I was making a doctor's salary and then was stripped of my license, I couldn't afford a can of tuna, but it did not change the knowledge within me. Yeah. So you can strip the external clothes off the emperor, but you cannot strip the knowledge back out once you are knowledgeable. So my entire spiel is, if I could share my knowledge without being political and warmongering and getting myself banned because I'm saying the wrong words that are not allowed to be said, but I could say it in a way that would empower each of you to become your own self-guided, territory, then that is my goal. Yeah. And as a result of you thinking better, you will be able to make whatever decision you need to at whatever junction comes your way. But if you have a brain that is exhausted and toxic and unable to concentrate or focus on reality, you can be bamboozled and you can be hoodwinked into doing something that hasn't been well researched and is against your true best nature.
Exactly.
So I'm just preaching knowledge.
Yes.
Or maybe I should say comprehension.
Mm-hmm. Well, you came from a medical background, which I think is incredibly powerful, and that you realised that you didn't have all the tools that you needed to help people, and you've gone on and got all this other phenomenal overview in all these different ways. So therefore, you can now pick and choose, and that's, I think, what really ideally you'd be looking for. That's normally right. We need to have about 7 or 8 or 20 people to get access to all the knowledge that you have. So thank you so much for sharing and giving us your time here at Heal Scotland. We're so grateful. And let's talk. We could stay on here all week. Let's talk about the Insight app and getting that information so that people can start listening to the frequencies. And when will your custom libraries be ready?
I just finished them this morning.
Fantastic.
They're ready to go. Yesterday, I made the most blistering new program on I added at the very end of the year, I decided to add in all the senses. So I want to repair your ability to perceive your world. So I did a huge thing on vision, hearing, smell, taste, ESP. So the last library I finished is on how to sharpen up your senses. So there's a vibrational library for each of the organs. And if you can you, instead of having my knowledge, you can now buy my genius library called the Master Branch Health Safari Libraries, so that you would have every bit of knowledge I've ever had in my whole medical career on one panel. And you would take the AEIOU compared to that panel and see where is their liver stuck, what enzymes are they missing, what vitamins in their liver, what liver fluke do they have. So you could clean out the whole liver as one solid package. Next week, you go to the gallbladder. Next week, you go to the heart, then the small intestine and the bladder and the kidney, etc. So in a way, my goal is to see if we can clean people out in 12 weeks and see if they could give us some testimonial or even a blood test. Did your monocytes improve? Did you? So it might be wise of us to get a bit of some kind of a measuring stick before
plan this a little bit so that we can really prove, that the results can be there. I want it now. There's a lot of people wanting to join in, but you and I can discuss this, and we will plan it. And then
feel free to invite your people using your link into the I Love My Genius Tuesday free lecture if they want to hear me speak about these major topics and the topics for the next year. Last year we did the ABCDEFG: airway, brain, circulation, digestion, endocrine fluids, genetics, housing. Next year we're going to work on pain, stress, relaxation, and peak performance. And how I'm going to do that is by going through the second half of the alphabet. M for microbes and metals, N for nutrition, O for organ inflammation, P for pain, S for stress, T for trauma, U for unity of mind, V for vitality, the U, unity of consciousness, W for weight management, X for sex, prowess, and purity, and Zen for sleep. So I'm going to show you how to detox your body this year, rather than last year showing the anatomy of the body. Now I want to put it to use in showing you how the genius can apply this to your body so that you can now start not only building up your nutrition, but sucking down the old inflammatory or degenerative things that are making you diseased and prematurely aged.
Yeah, taking action. That's what we want.
Action that has to be done. You're so right, Lilia.
Well, listen, huge, huge gratitude and appreciation. Lots of people excited to get on the program, so we'll discuss it and we'll let everybody know when you're going to come on, and you can explain the app in much more detail and show them, because you're better at that kind of tech than I am.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, and as I said, I do have a new conference room that's about to open up tomorrow, and it holds 20,000 people. So I believe that you and I have a job this year to train 20,000 people.
Yeah, and absolutely. That's
if we can train 1,000 leaders within that 20,000, and they go out to train 1,000 people, we could affect 1 million people.
Yeah, and if anybody listening is interested, ping me a message, and I will put the links. Can people approach you for a one-to-one?
Yes, they can. If you want to just put I don't see where I can chat with you, can I? Oh, so I'll just put my direct phone number here if you want to call me up for a session.
Yeah, I can put it in if anybody's interested in a one-to-one session with Deborah, please just let me know and I will send you her details.
Yeah, it's Dr. Drake 432@gmail.com. And I just popped that into the chat box there for you, okay?
Okay, fantastic.
And I have a website. It's a little disarrayed right now, but it's got just too many things on it. I need to strip it all back down again, but it's called healthcounts.ca, and it has some links to nutrition. And next week I'm opening up my own nutrition line called In Rhythm Nutrients, and I'm matching the detox nutrients and herbs for each organ so that you'll know what vitamin to take with what organ you're cleaning. And I'm going to try and make that very obvious to you. These are the things that you can do for yourself from home.
Fantastic. Listen, my computer's about to die.
All right.
Listen, thanks a million.
Don't forget to stop the recording.
No, it's still going. So okay. I'll chat to you really soon. Thanks again. I'll see you tomorrow night for training.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. Talk soon, and bless you all. My love to Scotland from Canada and all around the world.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers. Happy New Year. Bye-bye.